Hey everybody, welcome to episode 98 of the Askdap show, where we answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. On this episode, we're going to answer questions from the car on our way to a Eurowise get-together with potential fans.
Or people that are just walking by.
Or just people who are there anyway.
Dalton via Facebook says, Tire experts, is this pluggable? Some Yahoo at Tires Plus said no to plugging or patching.
All right, Charles, so I'm going to let you give your thoughts on this, and then I'll share mine.
So definitely, there are two sides to this that I come at it from. One, and the one I'm going to start with, is as a professional. And say what you want about a tire store, we weren't there, so we don't know who was looking at it, but I'm going to assume that they operate with the utmost integrity and professionalism that one can. If you brought this to my shop, I wouldn't plug it or patch it either. This is a nail, probably penetrated into the actual tire, so we have a leak. An inch, maybe it's a little hard to tell from the picture. We'll call it an inch from the sidewall, from the edge of the tire. That's way too close to get a proper plug patch, which is where we take the tire off the rim or the wheel, whichever you prefer. We take the tire off, we scuff the inside, we put a plug and a patch so it goes up through the hole as well as seals the inner part of the tire. And for the most part, that's how shops are going to do it, because it is the best way to make a repair on a tire. And that doesn't really leave you enough room to do the proper scuffing before you start getting up into the sidewalk.
Right, because what he's referring to is a plug that has a piece that comes through the tire from the back side, so you have to actually dismount the tire. Right. And so it needs to get a flat mounting surface on that disc when you pull it through, and because if you're too close to the sidewall, it will kind of bend and you won't get a good seal.
And the glue won't hold up as it curves around. And based on the picture, this looks like a Golf R. Even on a Jetta, I wouldn't do it. On a Golf R, I assume that most drivers of Golf Rs tend to drive a little more spirited than perhaps your average, Jetta or Toyota Camry driver. As you lean in or lean out on that tire, it's going to squish even more, and that can potentially cause a dangerous situation. Now, the other side of it, if this were my car, okay, and it was not something I was asked to do as a professional from a paying customer, I might consider putting a plug in it as a temporary thing. Mm-hmm. That plug may be okay, it may hold forever for the life of the tire, but I can tell you what I wouldn't be doing. Getting on the highway at 100 miles an hour. I wouldn't be going to the racetrack with a tire like this. This plug in this location, to me, would be a temporary thing to get me home, to get me to where, maybe I can't afford a $200 tire today, but I get paid on Friday and I can do it then. A temporary thing on a high-performance vehicle, or in any vehicle really. But as a professional, I wouldn't have fixed it either.
Yeah. The one thing, you didn't see, but in a lot of these comments, people were saying that you can just plug it and here's a plug kit. And yeah, absolutely. I think that's an option for you. The one thing I think is, especially if you're driving the car, the one thing you touched on, which if you drive the car aggressively, the idea of plugging a tire of something that you're going to be driving really aggressively, all that heavy turning, all the high speeds can apply a little bit more pressure. And if you plug it in, not in the way he's talking about, but just by putting this kind of the sticky thing through and then pull it out, which is the way a lot of plugs happen.
And that can be a perfectly good repair if it's done properly in the right location.
Yeah. But when you get towards the edge, all that flexing potentially causes a blowout, which is why most shops, because of liability purposes alone, will not touch something like that, because there's a big chance that could blow out the tire at a high speed, and that's super dangerous. And if somebody dies, obviously nobody wants to be responsible for that. So
we always used and right or wrong or otherwise, this was a come down, a top down kind of thing. If it was in that outer tread bar, unless it was just barely kissing it, we wouldn't make a repair. We would recommend a tire. And I know a lot of people are like, that's dumb, you can totally fix it. I get it. And I'm not saying that I haven't done that on my own car. Yeah. In fact, my Tiguan has that exact kind of repair. Yeah. But that's different than going to a professional and asking them to make a repair. And then you're basically holding them accountable for the long-term liability of that repair. And I don't blame them. Like I said, no way I would have made a repair on that tire.
Daniel via Facebook says, Paul, do all Mark 7 GTIs have cabin drone between 2 and 3,000 RPM when running a full turbo back in stage 2? I have a new speed full exhaust on it and it becomes almost unbearable on longer trips. I no longer have my OEM catback. What should I do? I like my car loud, but this can be a little much when it's hard to talk on your cell phone.
Okay, so this question I think is interesting, and you know, we're in my car currently.
You can't ask for a better situation to answer that question.
So, and actually you can see right now we're a little over 2,000 RPM. It's fairly quiet. So we have a turbo back exhaust. It is a custom catback and Unitronic catted downpipe. Keep in mind, if you run a catless downpipe, it's going to be louder than a catted downpipe. And Mark 7s in general are really loud as it is. But to answer your question, not every exhaust is going to be like that. It's something that you might consider, and I don't know where you're at with this situation, but I would consider, if you're looking to do it, maybe add a resonator, bring it to a shop who's capable of doing that for you, and you can add a resonator to it, and that should help bring down some of that drone on the vehicle. You know, catbacks, to me, I don't know how many cars you've driven on Mark 7s in with or without catbacks, but I always recommend any Mark 7 owner, do a downpipe first. It's where you get most of the power anyway, and then see how it sounds, because you actually get quite a bit of sound difference from a downpipe on Mark 7s.
Yeah, this is one of those, regardless of the car, sacrifices that we make when we start modifying outside of the factory scope. You know, if you take a Borla muffler, for example, Borla spends a lot of time in R&D into tuning their muffler.
Yeah.
I don't know that they make a Mark 7 kit, but they spend a lot of R&D. Just like Volkswagen spends a lot of R&D in tuning the exhaust, they don't necessarily tune it so much for us, right? They tune it for everybody. So I'm not surprised that you're getting this drone. I've heard other people say very similar things, and not just on that brand.
Yeah.
It's just in general. I've had cars that, you know, you drive and it's 4 times louder than this, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. The older I get, I'm like, I don't want to hear that crap. Like, I want it quiet. I want, you know, nice chill ride, especially on long trips like that. You know, tooling around town, or, you know, when you're able to drive a little more aggressive, is no big deal. But I think your recommendation of not going all full exhaust right away is a really good recommendation. It doesn't help this question so much.
Anybody else potentially
doing a resonator, what you might be able to do is try one of the local Facebooks or the Mark 7 Facebook group. See if someone local has a stock exhaust. I imagine you could probably, depending on how it was installed, do a fairly easy swap
back
of the exhaust. Drive it, see how it changes the tone, and boy, maybe you can sweet talk someone into buying your exhaust with the trade for the factory one, and keep your downpipe, but keep the factory exhaust the rest of the way back. And I think that would, if I were in that situation, that's probably what I would look to do. Save a bunch of money, maybe not even spend any money, maybe make some money back and quiet that exhaust note down. It would be interesting to have your car dynoed first and then swap the exhaust back to stock and see what you really lose.
Catbacks are
on the
not
dyno
much.
Versus on the old butt dyno. Just because it's loud doesn't make it fast.
Yeah.
Leo E36 via YouTube says, Italian tune-up is always a solution. Take your car to a track day and say goodbye to carbon buildup.
So this question was asked on a video I shot a long time ago, talking about carbon buildup on direct injection engines. We get stuff like this sometimes, and so Charles, why don't you share your thoughts about Italian tune-ups?
Italian tune-up, and what an Italian tune-up, basically, the short version is, you mash the throttle, you see smoke come out, you do that a bunch of times till you don't see smoke come out. And I understand that, and that can help. It can reduce some carbon, but that is not a replacement for a manual carbon cleaning by the time you've got excessive carbon buildup. You know, we can do things to extend the life, so to say, between carbon cleanings. Things like catch cans can help. Good fuel, good quality oil changes, making sure your car maintenance is up to date. Driving it does help. You know, full throttle accelerations do help. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to fix it, and I really think that the idea of taking it to the track, however often, is just not for most people. I mean, I worked at the dealership. You know how many people with Tiguan's would never even consider, even if I said this is how you fix your car, you'll save hundreds of dollars, would never do that. Yeah. So I like the spirit of the comment, I really do. I just don't think that that's the lightsaber repair that maybe it seems like it was meant to be.
So the thing that I always think with this is that a lot of people who leave these comments, that video is kind of broad and just generally explaining the problem on direct injection engines, and a lot of people who read that actually have different perspectives because they are talking about different brands, and so what they're referring to is in cylinder carbon buildup. A lot of times that's, you know, like the hard flaky stuff, and as opposed to what happens on VW and Audis because of lacking direct injection in the PCV system, is that all that gooey stuff that builds up on the intake valves, and that the hard stuff might actually be able to get
and that's
cracked off through that system.
And a fuel treatment will help that too. The intake fuel treatments can help that.
Right.
They're not going to do nearly as much for the carbon buildup as I'm assuming the video was referring to. Stuff I've talked about a bunch too, where it's building up on the backs of the intake valves. Once it's at the point where you're experiencing a drivability concern, there's no getting it off other than pulling the manifold and manually cleaning it. We can extend it a little bit, you know, through the intake airstream stuff. I don't think we'll ever fix this problem. I think it may help the severity of it or extend the mileage interval, but I don't think it's going to fix it. Again, this is not a lightsaber type thing. This is extending intervals between it. It's a problem. It's not just a problem with VW Audi. It's a direct injection problem. Sorry, a turbocharged direct injection problem, because I think cars that are DI non-turbo don't have this kind of issue. But as much as I love the idea of taking a car to track and beating it up a little bit,
the hell out of it,
I don't think that doing that for carbon buildup purposes is really something that I would be interested in doing.
Yeah.
Nicholas Rappa via YouTube says, been having a bit of an argument with some friends about dropping my car. When it comes to overall ride quality, what's better, expensive springs like the VWR or cheap coils like the Brauch autos? Thanks.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, I would say replacing cheap coilovers instead of a quality spring is not going to get you a better ride quality. I would say a quality spring is a better choice, assuming you're not slamming the car, because if you're not slamming the car, so like for example VWR Springs for Mark 7s, they are probably one of our more popular springs. They don't lower the car a lot, so you can keep factory shocks as long as they're in solid quality shape. If you slam the car to the ground on, let's say, some sort of race spring of some kind, the travel of the shock is not good enough from the factory, and so you'll end up having a problem. Going with cheap coilovers, I would say, is never going to be the best choice. We offer them because there's people demand them. It's not. If it was up to me, I wouldn't offer them at all. But because we have customers who want them, we offer them. I don't push people that direction. It's fine for the people who are looking for that as the option, as a cheap way to get the adjustability. But for the average person who's looking to keep a solid quality ride, springs are always be my bet. Suspension is one area, like many, where you will almost always get what you pay for. Yeah. Dude, if you want to slam your car to the ground, slam it to the ground on the cheapest crap you can put it on. If you want a factory-like ride, but a little bit cooler look and maybe a little bit tighten up in the suspension, do good quality coils. Consider buying shock absorbers. Maybe not right away, at some point. But a good ride on a cheap insert suspension component, for the most part, does not exist. I've had cars lowered on just about every brand of spring within reason, and you almost instantly can tell the difference. Dropping it 2.5 inches on springs will be cool for a minute, and then the car's going to ride like crap because you've blown out your shock absorbers. This is an area where the right solution or the best solution is usually way more expensive than people want to spend on making your car come down a little bit, making it look cool,
having a little bit better stance, a little bit better ride as far as handling and the firmness, the tightness of the suspension. For me, if I want to replicate, let's say, going from a Golf suspension to a GTI suspension, then you're going to spend the money on it. And there is no cheap solution. There are less expensive solutions, but you're going to sacrifice that ride quality probably instantly, but definitely over a certain mileage you're really going to sacrifice. This is one area, kind of like the exhaust too, really. Do it right, spend the money the first time so you're not buying them over and over and over and over again.
Tom Dixon via Facebook says, what are your thoughts of doing mechanical diff, but keep the PPE diff as well?
All right, so this question actually was asked.
I remember seeing this somewhere.
Yeah, this was asked in a response to a video I shot where we had a customer who, he has a performance pack and he wants to get a true limited slip as opposed to the E-diff setup. This guy happens to be crazy enough that he actually might consider doing it. I think most people, they would be a little nuts to do it, and he is a little nuts. So, but I talked about that, and so he's talking about keeping both. Yeah. So here's where I think the problem is going to be with this.
It's going to just piss the E-diff off.
Correct. So what is going to end up happening is, and I don't know this is just speculation, but the limited slip mechanical diff, if you replace it with the one in the vehicle, is going to conflict with what the electronic portion is trying to do. And I mean, who knows, it might explode the whole setup for all I know. I really don't know what it would do, but I would say they're often going to be fighting each other as far as one trying to do something different than the other, and it could end up with really bad results.
So this is an interesting question, and it's one of those that I wonder, just because you can, should you, or the question or comment I think I would have back to that, and many questions really, is understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. What would be the overall goal of having both a limited slip mechanically or inside the box, right, with the gears, versus the E-diff that the performance pack comes in? And I gotta imagine that you're gonna be getting some butting of heads in there. You're gonna either piss off the electrical portion or make the mechanical portion upset, to where maybe they're fighting each other, or one's doing one thing, one's doing the other, or one's doing something faster than the other, and now it's making it upset. Not to mention all the other ESP and diff controls, electronics, the stability programs that the car's got built into it. So I'm not going to say you can't do that, because boy, you can do anything with the right skills and enough money. I just don't know that would be something that 99.999% of people would one, want to do, and two, even come close to seeing an advantage if it worked.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the idea of buying a $2,000 limited slip and then hoping that it's going to work with your E-diff and hope it doesn't explode and nuke your entire transmission, that's probably what the realistic outcome is that if you're going to do it, you're going to have to be the guinea pig and then figure out if it's going to explode the trans, which is just not viable for pretty much anybody.
Yeah, I would say unless you have that as completely disposable and you got another E-diff box to put back in it, in case something does go wrong, I don't know that I would tread down that road. That being said, all that being said,
it'd be interesting.
It's an interesting thought experiment. And boy, would I like to see the carnage of what would happen, or honestly, what wouldn't happen. Maybe it would work fine. But I think the question, whenever we're looking at something like this and really stretching far outside of what we bought a car with, right, is what are we doing and what is our end goal? Is our end goal going to be achieved by doing this? And I don't really see a situation where it would be. I think you'd be much better off swapping it out altogether with the E-diff, putting a mechanical one if you wanted to go that route, or maybe there's a company that tunes these E-diffs. I don't know if that's even a thing yet.
Not as far as I know.
I know with Halodex there's a lot of companies that
controllers,
you can control the Halodex. That makes a lot of sense to me. I get that. But I would be looking for more of an electronic solution or a software solution.
I think that's actually a good point.
Rather than dumping a mechanical one in there and risk doing catastrophic damage to a very expensive
setup.
component of your car.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching episode 98 of the Askdap Show, where Charles and I answered your Volkswagen and Audi questions. Make sure you check out Charles's YouTube channel if you're not familiar with who he is. I'll have links to all of his stuff in the description below where you can check that out. And again, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up.